The NBA season is slowly but surely reaching its ending point as teams are making their final run towards the playoffs. When you look at the Western Conference standings, you can see that the difference in wins across the conference is so minimal that one loss could cost you seeding. You have the Kings and Mavericks who have bounced around from in and out of the play-in, and the Lakers and the Warriors as teams that have begun to pull in wins over the past month and a half, and you could even argue that it's possible that they could sneak into that top 6. And yet, when you ask which of the top seeds are likely to be overtaken by one of these teams and fall into the play-in, there's one team in particular that you'd likely hear as the answer. That team is the New Orleans Pelicans. This team has been going under the radar so much this season to the point that if you weren't keeping up with the NBA, you wouldn't know that they're the 5th seed right now and have been comfortably good for the majority of the season. Perhaps it's the major media outlets that trashed the team after their blowout loss during the in-season tournament against the Lakers, which may have contributed to them falling under the radar, and ever since then, the team hasn't been being taken seriously. In reality, they've been one of the better teams this season, especially considering the fact that they're playing in such a competitive conference. They're a top 10 offense, the 6th ranked defense, and they have the 4th best net rating in the league. Part of what makes this season so good for them is the fact that both Zion and Brandon Ingram have been able to stay healthy this season. Last year, Zion only played 29 games, while Brandon Ingram only played 45, and they've both already surpassed their previous games played by a significant amount. When you've got both of them healthy, the team looks so much better as they can add the scoring impact the team needs. We already saw last year the potential this team had, as they were the 3rd seed at the start of January before Zion played his last game. This year, that potential has been realized and they could be securing the playoff seeding by the end of the season. Now, why is it that despite their success, when you compare them to teams with similar amount of wins, they are getting talked about significantly less? Part of it probably has to do with the fact that they haven't necessarily stood out very much. Like I said before, they kind of got embarrassed in the in-season tournament while on national TV, but another reason likely lies in their lack of an AllStar this year. Neither Zion or Brandon Ingram made the AllStar team, and when you look at the top 6 teams in both conferences, they're the only one without an AllStar. It's also not as if their numbers necessarily stick out either. Zion has gone down from his 26 points per game last season to 22 this year, and Brandon Ingram went from averaging 24 to 21. However, to say that they've regressed would kind of undermine the great season they're having. Brandon Ingram is still a force on offense, has been an elite mid-range shooter this year, and has just been a great scorer for the team in general, since he can get to his spots and pull up over you with ease. Zion himself has been a spot of criticism for the team, considering the issues of him not being in shape for the season, which is fair, but as the season's progressed, he's begun to work himself into shape. He has the 2nd most attempts in the restricted area behind Giannis and is shooting 67% on 10 attempts a game. He's also doing this while not getting as many free throws a game as he did in previous years. Overall, he's shooting 57% from the field this season. Willie Green has also been experimenting with Zion running the point, and it's been working out well. The attention that Zion pulls when he attacks the rim forces teams to load up in the paint, allowing him to kick the ball out to the various shooters on the team. One of those shooters happens to now be Herb Jones. And man, Herb Jones has to get all defensive first team, easily. I'd be surprised if he isn't.
And 5, I said it before, this man is not first team all defense. I don't know what requirements you need to make it at that point.
95th percentile in defensive EPM. He's constantly tasked with some of the most difficult defensive matchups every night, and he's making it a nightmare for these offensive players. And not only is he a defensive monster, he's now become a very reliable 3-point shooter. He's went from being a below average 3-point shooter to shooting 43.5% from 3 on 3.5 attempts a game. You also have Trey Murphy, who's still ramping it up after his injury in the offseason, and he's only been getting better and better as the season's gone on. Very recently, he's been on a hot streak, and in his last 6 games, he's averaging 22.8 points per game on 5 threes a game and nearly 11 attempts. So when you've got guys like Zion and Brandon Ingram that can get inside the 3-point line and pull the defense off shooters, there are so many options for you to pass to. Whether it's Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum, Jordan Hawkins, Matt Ryan, who's been a really good pickup. He's shooting an insane 47% from 3 on 4.5 attempts. You've also got Nadia Marshall, and even their bigs in Jonas Valanciunas and Larry Nance Jr. can hit them if you need them to. It is surprising that despite being such a good 3-point shooting team, they're also a team that doesn't get up as many threes as compared to the rest of the league. They're 5th in 3-point percentage at 38%, yet are also 23rd in attempts. So that's a bit questionable, but it's been working, so I guess there's no need to fix it. Perhaps that might change for the playoffs, I don't know. So now to give my take on the team when compared to the other contenders in the West. First, you have to look at the other top 6 seeds and ask yourself whether they could beat this team in a playoff series. First, you've got the Thunder. I'd say no. Then the Nuggets, I'd also say no, along with the Timberwolves as well. But then I see the Clippers and the Suns around them, and while I'm not saying they're the better team, I do think that they have a chance. They don't have the same star power as them, but what they do have is top quality depth. They have great shooters, great defenders, and that might be enough to get them through the first round if they get a good matchup. And I'm especially excited to finally see Zion in a playoff atmosphere for the first time in his career, because he can put a lot of narratives to shame if he plays very well. Looking into their offseason, there is one decision that they'll have to make regarding the future as a whole. Brandon Ingram will be on an expiring contract as of the next year, and the Pelicans have to make a decision on whether to extend him, with the likely other option being to trade him. He'll be asking for a lot of money, and there still is demand for a true point guard on the team. You've got CJ, and while he can play the point, I still think he's a better fit at the 2 guard. You also have to think about the fact that they have to pay Trey Murphy soon as well. The pairing of Zion and Ingram also hasn't been as good as you would have hoped, and it has a lot to do with where they operate. Brandon Ingram doesn't shoot many threes and operates inside the 3-point line, while teams can sit off from Zion, who isn't much of a threat outside of the restricted area. And while you may want to keep him, there's also the thought of building the best team to complement Zion in his playstyle, at least if Zion is who you believe is their franchise player. I personally believe that he is, and if that's the case, there may be a tough decision that will need to be made. Regardless, I just wanted to talk about the season that they're having and the fact that it's been very underrated, and I believe they needed some more attention and they deserve more love for how good they've been this season. If you have any thoughts on the Pelicans, leave them down below, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.